Get a little note here that says we're going live. All right. Turn the sound off of there. All right, we're officially started. Welcome everyone to the Improvising Harpist interview number 2.
Hello, everyone.
David Trapp. So, David, I'll ask you a few questions and then let you get going with your showing us how you're improvising on this piece that you sent out. And if you don't have the sheet music for this piece, it's on the Facebook group under the files. There's a PDF there of the Maria Walks Through the Thorn, Amid the Thorn.
Amid the Thorn.
Yeah, Amid the Thorn. All right, so first of all, everyone, drop a little note in the chat and tell us where you are. I'm in Denver, Colorado, where it's 51 degrees today. It was 19 day before yesterday. That's regular Colorado crazy weather. And David, where are you dialing in from?
I'm in Forest Grove, Oregon, which is about 25 miles west of Portland.
West of Portland, so close to the coast.
Well, another 50 miles to the coast.
Okay, all right. All right.
It's about 42 degrees.
All right. Oh, Dayton, Ohio, by way of Indianapolis. Yahoo! I lived in Indianapolis for 6 years when I was younger. Liked it there a lot. All right. Okay, so David, let's go ahead and get started. Tell us a little bit about your life with the harp and how you got started playing and all that good stuff.
Okay, the harp was my first instrument. I remember around 21 years ago, I was in Ashland, Oregon, which always has an excellent Shakespeare festival. And I was there for that, and they have a wonderful music store in town, and they sold harps. And prior to that, some months before, I went to a Christmas party and saw a harpist play, and I was fascinated by it. I spent half the party just watching her play. I think she might have thought I was a stalker or something, because I just kept staring at her playing the harp. I wasn't. I say that for the record. I just kept staring at her playing the harp. I wasn't.
Oh,
say that for the record.
I'm gonna mute everybody.
So anyway, I was at the store in Ashland, and on an impulse, I just bought a harp. It was a Dusty Strings crescendo, I think. And for once in my life, I decided I'm going to do this right. Instead of just simply trying to learn it on my own, I found a teacher right away, Verlene Schermer, down in San Jose. I lived in San Jose at the time. And within a few weeks, I realized I really like this. So I drove all the way back up to Ashland, traded in that crescendo for a bigger harp, another Dusty Strings, and I was off and running. I took lessons for a couple of years. I remember I sold that harp and got a used Dusty Strings 36 string. Then I picked up a Dusty Strings Zephyr for travel. The one I have today is a triplet. An excellent 26 string. And off and on, I took lessons. A few years ago, I took lessons from Cheryl Fulton. And now what I'm mostly doing is an amazing thing when they tell you that practice actually matters. I practice every day. I go to coffee shops to play. People seem to enjoy hearing it. And I've composed a couple pieces, which have mostly just taught me a lot of music, because I've never taken a college course in music or anything. So except for going to seminars or a couple teachers over the years, this is all I know. I mean, my knowledge is limited, but I feel I'm getting better. So, and I noticed I had a breakthrough moment a few years ago when, you could call it laziness if you wish, but I just started playing with a lot more improvisation, and it seemed to click and work for me. And it freed me up as a musician quite a bit. And I think it kind of inspired me to do a lot more. And so, yeah, I try to play every day, an hour or more. I've got a repertoire that I play. Now I'm playing at farmers market type things. They seem to, so actually, this year I've actually made like $300 playing the harp. Wow, who would have thunk it? But I enjoy it, and that's the key. I enjoy playing the harp.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, thank you for sharing that story. And
I would
it,
add one other thing to it. I bought my harp in July of 2001, and I was just kind of plodding away with very, very basic music because I knew nothing. And one of the songs I was learning was The Minstrel Boy. Then 9/11 happened, and we're all glued in horror, not just the television, but also watching all the funerals. And after about the 10th funeral, it took a while, I suddenly realized all these firemen and police officer funerals, they're playing The Minstrel Boy. It took me a while to catch on to that. But then I realized this music is not just a minor little thing, it really matters to people. So I kind of kept that one in my repertoire, and I took the music more seriously after that point.
mm-hmm,
Yeah,
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, it's music is such a crucial part of who we are as humans.
yeah, I
And
agree.
certain songs evoke certain feelings and kind of across the board. And it's really helpful to know what those are and to have them in your repertoire if you're doing
Yes.
that kind of work. So,
And,
yeah.
and it was also very therapeutic for me. I had a remarkably stressful job, and I was an attorney in private practice, and I was being self-employed. You don't know if you're going to get any money the next month, so it was very stressful. And this gave me an outlet, which I really, really needed.
Mm. So you started while you were still working.
Yes, yes.
And then how long until you retired?
I retired around 4 years ago.
Okay. And then you started playing more.
Yeah, there were some years which I think I was barely treading water as a harpist. Yeah, I'd play through my songs, but I didn't sense I was growing much. In the last 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years, I've noticed I've picked up a lot. And I think having the time and having rid myself of a lot of stress, it made a big difference.
Hmm. Hmm. So talk a little bit more about the improv piece of this, because that's the focus for in my world.
Okay. The song is Maria Walks Amid the Thorn. I came across it a couple months ago in a book by the Trapp family singers, an old book of like 50, 60 years ago. And and contrary to what the movie says, they didn't play the songs you see in the movie. They played, the actual group played traditional folk music. And I came across this, and I found a couple versions online of people singing it and realized it is a very beautiful piece. And I thought it would be a nice little something different to do on the harp. So my standard, the song itself is a Advent song about Jesus, about Mary walking with Jesus still in the womb, and she's walking and the plants which previously had showed no flowers or anything start blooming because of the presence of holiness. So it is a remarkably simple and beautiful song. And since we're now in Advent, I think it's kind of perfect for a little seminar like this, a little talk on improvisation.
All
And
right.
yeah,
So tell us a little bit. Now you teach also, correct?
I teach a little bit. I have a background in teaching. One of the things I did when I was practicing law, I taught for 12 years, business law and employment law.
Hmm.
Um, Except for maybe just helping a few local harpists learn a few things and our local harp circle. I don't really do a lot of teaching. I think I could, because I think I know enough that I could teach people well. So this is kind of a breakthrough little moment for me too. Oh wow, I get to see how I do in teaching people.
Right. All right. So take us through how you would approach this piece and how you would turn it into an improvisation on the harp.
Okay. Well, once I realize I've got a piece I like, the first thing I would really do would be um, go through the written score and learn just the melody and the timing.
Hmm.
And if that takes me a day or two, that's fine. And so I'll give you an example of what I do. This is my harp. Now, to note the tuning on this, you've got to do a lot of lever changes because this is an F sharp minor. So I plug up a whole lot of levers. So we are now in F sharp minor.
And the major key associated with that is?
This would be A major.
A major.
Okay,
so if your harp is tuned as to E flat, you've got all your levers up but one.
But yes. And you can play this song in, quite honestly, if you can transpose it, you can play it in any key you want, as long as you're starting it and doing it in a, as like if you're tuned to C major, you could play it as an A minor song. You just have to adjust a little bit.
Yep. Okay.
Just the melody. If you look at the score which I provided, so just the melody. Okay, that's the melody. So the first thing I would do would I'd get that down so I'm proficient at it, that I don't have to be looking at the score, because I want to put the score aside. So I'm not glued to it, because quite honestly, I'm not very good at having the score in front of me, looking at the score, looking at my fingers, looking back and forth, and playing in a smooth fashion. I've never been good at that. And so that maybe I'm cheating a little bit, or maybe I'm lazy, but in some ways, I think improvisation fits me better. Okay, so I've got the basic melody, but then if I'm going to start improvising and really just creating from that, actually, before I set the score aside, there'd be a couple of things you would look at. One, figure out this is a Christmas piece, and most Christmas pieces are in either major or minor. You're not dealing with a different mode. And so looking at this and looking at how this composer structured it, and how F is really the kind of the dominant note, both at the beginning and at the ending, it's safe to say you're playing this in minor. And you want to know that before you really start improvising. And so your dominant tone or your dominant chord is going to be your F sharp minor. So that's useful to know. A couple other things you should kind of walk away knowing about this. I made a point of listening to a couple different choral groups singing the song to see how slowly or how quickly they played it, or how they sung it. And they sang it reverently, because it's a Christmas song, but they also just sang it relatively slow. Okay, and so it's a good thing to know it's a relatively slow song. And since you're an F sharp major, if you're going to do kind of a shorthand for your chords, what I'd look for is the first chord, the fourth chord, and the fifth chord, the 1-4-5 classic way of doing your kind of your dominating chords for that piece. So you're looking primarily at say an F sharp would be your first chord, B would be your fourth, C sharp would be your fifth. And then another very important thing I would look at, what is the diminished chord? Here, the diminished chord is G sharp. So I know in jazz and a few things, sometimes they will use diminished chords, but we generally don't do that. And so if I'm looking at this and I'm flying back and forth, figuring out what chords to play at the moment, the one chord I really don't want to play is the G sharp or the diminished chord. I can put that off limits. It's kind of a quick shorthand for it. So once I've got that down, I know roughly what the harmonic structure is going to be for what I'm trying to play. I'm also looking at other things like what might I do as an introduction, what might I do as some interludes, and how complicated do I want to make either counter melodies or other things I might be doing. Well, this is a pretty simple Christmas song. I don't want to crowd it and make it unduly complicated with a lot of counter melodies, which I'm not very good at doing anyway. So I'm giving myself an excuse just to do, say, simple drones or simple chords. And you can do a very beautiful song by keeping it quite simple. And you'd also, as you're playing, you might spontaneously throw in maybe some grace notes or cuts, a few other things to jazz it up, but not by much. You don't want to overdo it. You may or may not want to do some glissandos if it catches you at the moment, but I generally don't plan those in advance. So I just kind of start working with that. And once I've kind of figured out the basic structure, then I sit down on the harp and just start playing some things. Now, sometimes what I play might work, sometimes it may not. But one of the things that helps to learn here is before you really start doing improvisation, it helps to remember some harpists can't have a real hard time daring to improvise. They feel themselves glued to the written page. How dare I'm not good enough to improvise. I got to do what's only on the written page. Well, I'm sorry, you're wrong. You can improvise. You can do, and you can do it very well. Now, there's a couple things. It does help to have some basic technique. You cannot play better than your technique. It's an ironclad rule. But the better your technique, the better you can play. So if you're a true raw beginner, doing much improvisation is probably counterproductive to you. You've got to learn basic things such as the best hand position, the best way to pluck into your palm, the best way to kind of flow the melody into your body, know your rhythm, know your timing. You pick up those things so you've got it. But once you've got a groundwork for that, you can improvise. This paperwork is not sacred scripture. You can do something else with it. You can dare to make this song and make it your own piece of music. Improvising, or if you want to improvise in advance. Cymber, I think in your last chat a couple of days ago, you mentioned you can improvise at home. If you're out performing, you can kind of repeat what you're doing. Well, you're still improvising. You just kind of planned it in advance. That's okay. There's no law against it. But if you're improvising either on the fly or when you practice, then great. Make the song your own. You don't have to automatically follow what someone else is doing on paper. Make it your own. So to try to remove the handcuffs, dare to make the song something that you feel like playing. And by doing so, you also do one other thing: you improvise. Not only does it free you as a musician, you also learn a lot. I mean, it's one thing, say, to go to a Sylvia Woods book and you're seeing all the little things she does. And she's a very good teacher. I'm not knocking her in any way, shape, or form. But sometimes when you're doing it on your own, you have aha moments where you suddenly realize, oh, that makes sense. And if you happen to go back to her score some days later, well, I'm now sort of doing that on my own. That makes sense. That makes you feel better. That's kind of fun. Improvisation really should be all about having fun with it, making it your own piece. There is another kind of attitudinal change, if you will, is there is a term they use in business and when you go and have meetings, when we try to come up with new ideas, where you do something with what they call brainstorming, where everybody sits in the meeting, you come up with new ideas to solve your problem. And one of the key rules of that is there are no wrong answers. There are no wrong things to suggest. That's a good idea when it first comes to improvisation. Don't be hypercritical. Just be willing to try things. Some things you try will not work. That's okay. Do something else. That's how you learn. Don't be hypercritical. Don't overthink it. Just have fun with it. Try to get a flow for the music and just enjoy the process. And every time you try to do this for the piece of music, it might be different. That's okay. Tomorrow you'll play it differently than today. Next week you'll play it differently. But you'll notice you get better every time you try this. You've tried ideas, you suddenly realize you can do this. You've embraced the concept that you're actually a good musician. You can actually do this. And before you know it, you're improvising. And within a few days of taking the basic melody and trying to improvise on it, you've memorized it because you've worked so hard on it. You've got a piece that you can play improvisationally on a moment's notice. And that's a wonderful thing.
That's I love everything that you're saying. Everything, you and I are peas in a pod in that I joke that I stink at playing other people's music. And I have trouble reading and looking and playing and reading and looking and playing and so
I've never been,
that's
yeah, I've never been able to do that well.
and that led me to, and even as a kid wasn't very good at it. I played jazz piano and jazz band, and I hid behind the piano and I improvised because I couldn't read fast enough, and I didn't want the conductor to know that I was faking it, and I
Uh-huh.
didn't realize that that's what you were supposed to do anyway.
Yeah,
um,
and as I understand jazz, half of jazz is improvisation anyway.
that's right.
And I never understood jazz. I never had a clue regarding it. So I kind of leave that off the board. But
Well, what you're talking about is what jazz improvisers also do. There's a melody line that is called the head that everybody plays through together, and then all the players in the group take turns improvising on that melody. It's
okay,
exactly what you're doing here, where you learn the melody really well, and learn the chord structure that's underlying that melody, and then you step away from the melody a bit and make up your own thing based on that chord structure. So it's
okay,
it's very much what you're talking about doing here. In jazz, the chords are, out there chords for sure, and not always playable on the harp. But for what you're talking about, where you're having your 1 4 5 chord structure, and what I would call that, because you're working in a minor key, I would say that's the 2, the 3, and the 6 chords.
yes, yes.
Yeah, and that the 1 4 5 are the major chords. But that's just how I think about the chord numbers. So can you play us a little bit of
Sure,
improv?
sure. And let me add just one other couple quick things since we're kind of doing background before we start playing. I remember some 20 years ago, the group I played with down in San Jose called Harper's Hall. They had the excellent Irish harpist Granje Hambley in for a guest lecture. And she made a point of, when it comes to ornamentation, when it comes to Irish music, ornamentation is not really optional. It's almost mandatory. Doing things like grace notes and cuts and triplets, things like that really are almost mandatory, because that's when you hear Irish people play, they always use it. And not just on the harp, they'll use it on the fiddle, they'll use it on the tin whistle, they use it on every instrument they do. And so part of improvisation is tossing in those little things, such as grace notes or other things, just to make it more interesting as far as the liveliness of the music. Now, this is not an Irish piece. It's actually Maria Walks Amid the Thorn is an old medieval German piece, but you can still do some things like that within some restraint. You have to remember this is not necessarily a somber, it's a joyful song, but it's a simple Christmas song. So you don't want to overdo it. Try to remember the mood of what you're trying to play. Okay? All right. Now, one thing you'll notice if you look back at the score, and I told myself I wouldn't look at the score, but I'm looking at the score, you'll note that actually does you a favor by giving you a bit of an intro. It gives you, because you got 3 different lines of music. The top line, which is the only one I tend to look at, is the vocal. And the bottom 2 are what the instruments might play. But they're suggesting that the instruments introduce it better. So you've got a quick little introduction already built into it. That's nice. It's a good way to start. So, and also the first real note you hit, because the middle C on the first measure is really almost like a pickup note. So your first real full measure begins with an F. And so the F here, this is something done in F minor. So that you're going to start, if you can start with a left-hand chord, a good way to start it if you're improvising. I should probably play an F there to get the tonal center kind of centered, or even, whether it's one note or as a chord, drone to start the music process. Let me start. I made a mistake, but notice I'm not embarrassed. I'm starting over again. which you should do, but that's okay. Well, I went back when I played that higher C, I went back to the tonal center, okay, which is nice. You don't always, yeah, I could do it as a C instead of an F, but, and I might do that the second time on the third verse or something, but it's a good way to start it. And normally I'm not doing three note chords. I'm often just doing a 1 and a 5. It helps keep your it helps keep your chords from being too muddy because the notes are too close together on the lower on the bottom register. Well, I just tossed in a couple notes right there. That's almost my first interlude. It may just be a couple notes, but if you look, I've got a couple beats there, which I can toss in just a couple quick notes, and I've got myself a very brief interlude. I could do that, or I could make it. And I could make it a bit of a longer interlude. One thing I've noticed, which is hard for me, therefore I'll mention it as a good lesson. When doing interludes, for instance, you still have to stay within the timing of the piece, the beats of the piece. Sometimes I forget, I admit it. That's okay, at least, but I'm trying to focus on it and learn from it. You'd also have to say the same thing when it comes to intros, I suppose, and endings, but you still have to stay within the note, the tone, and especially the beats of what you're playing. Okay, so repeating. Well, that's kind of one round going through the song. Now, there's some other things I might do in that.
Can I stop you just for 1 second?
Please, go ahead.
So do you, on your Zoom, in your audio settings, is there something called original sound?
Oh, I don't see it in the, were you able to hear what I did well?
It's
Well,
okay. It could be
I don't,
better.
it probably does have it on, I'm not good at this stuff. Where would I find it?
So it go to the
Audio
little microphone,
settings?
yeah, audio settings,
Okay, now what?
and then scroll down to
Microphone?
audio. Oh, yeah. Wait, back. Yes, microphone.
Suppress, I could suppress background noise. You
We
want
want
that?
original sound for musicians.
Oh, where would I find that?
It's under your audio profile, just underneath microphone.
Well, I don't see that.
We don't want to suppress the background sounds because that
We
could
do not
suppress
want to.
the harp.
Okay. How about, all right, maybe I'll leave background noise on high then.
Yeah, as long as Bambi's not going to be barking, we should be
She's not in there.
fine.
Okay, let's see if this works.
Okay. All right. While we're stop just for a second. Yeah.
Is this better?
Yes.
Okay.
And also just want to say to everyone that if you are thinking of questions for David while he's playing, just drop them in the chat.
Yes.
And
Any question you want. There's a basic rule when it comes to questions. There's no such thing as a bad one.
That's right. If you've got that question, likely somebody else does too.
Yes, absolutely. Now, a few of the things you might try that's kind of on the spur of the moment, because that's kind of what improvisation is within a structure. You might say it's an interlude. You might say jump up an octave and simply play part of it there. So do I have this set right? I think so. Well, or instead of just automatically going to the middle, you can keep one round of it, or almost you could play it on the lower or higher. Jumping back and forth on the harp is something we can do, which many instruments cannot do. Part of it is simply just using your imagination and having fun with the piece. Let's see what else. Another thing, I went to a coffee shop today to kind of prepare for this. And one thing which occurred to me that is kind of advanced planning. So in some ways, it's almost not improvisation because you're actually thinking about it in advance. You could even go to your next higher up and do different levers. And so when you do an interlude, or you could actually go to a different key. Instead of being an F minor, you might go to E minor or something like that. Because when you play that interlude, you are then giving a different sound to what you're playing. And then when you finish that, you go back to the last time you play the normal verse. You could do that as well. You have a lot of options. And the better you get as a harpist, the more you realize you have different ideas that you can try when you play a piece.
Yeah, and as lever harpists, it's really nice that we have the option of setting each individual string to a different note. You can't do that on a pedal harp. When you press the pedal, press the F pedal, all the Fs become F sharps, and so that's one of the benefits of playing improvisation. Just as you're saying, if you want to modulate to a different key without flipping lots of levers, you can set it up ahead of time and move to a different register. I love doing that.
I would add a couple things while I'm thinking about it. One, this is something you mentioned a couple days ago, which I thought was spot on. Keep it simple. Simple melodies, simple arrangements can be remarkably beautiful. You don't have to add a bunch of stuff to it to make it more beautiful. Like this, for instance, is a remarkably simple, beautiful song. Keep it that way. And you can play it with simple drones or simple chords. If you want to do a counter melody, that's fine. But you can keep it very simple, especially when you're first learning to do something as supposedly challenging as improvisation. It's a good way to start. Keep it simple. Another thing I would suggest would be, this is a song. Now, I'm not a singer. I will not dare to sing a word of this. But you can, while you're playing, sing the song inwardly to yourself. And by doing that, you're getting more of the mood of the music will go into your fingers and into your instrument while you play it. You will know instinctively where do you put a little bit more emphasis, where do you quiet down, where's the feeling of the music. And if you have it, you're almost like singing it to yourself while you play it. You instinctively know that, and you will play a much better piece.
Yeah, that's so true. And spend if the piece has words, spend some time with the words.
Yes.
What is the what and then when when you're working on your improvisation, especially if you're doing something ahead of time, you might be thinking about how do I add to this story?
Yes.
How can the what piece of the story is missing that I could add as and tell that story through my improvisation? Now, I will say that I never do that, but I'm saying it's occurring to me now, so that I think
I
that
do.
in future ones I will be thinking about it like that.
I do it on some pieces. I'm getting a bit better. I want to add one other thing. I posted this on the site a couple of days ago, a quote from a famous musician. There was a famous, justifiably so, saxophonist, a jazz saxophonist, Charlie Parker. And he said, it's kind of a helpful advice to musicians: master your instrument, master the song, then put that stuff aside and just play.
Yep.
That is wonderful advice. Now, notice what he said, though. He said, master your instrument. That means you have to actually get your technique better. That means you have to get the song better. You have to master what you're doing. But once you've got that, take that written score, whatever you're unnecessarily relying upon, because you already know it, put it aside. Just sit down and have fun and play the song.
Hmm.
And once you've done doing this song, do another one. And before you know it, you're going to have a real repertoire which you can play at a moment's notice, whether it's Christmas music or other things. And you'll have a far better idea of what you're doing as a musician and what you're doing with that song. You can do it right then and there, and you can change it as you go. That's wonderful. That's fun. The whole idea of that is to take this and have fun with it.
Right. And what I love about improvisation, at least the way that I like to do it, is that it's every time I play it, it's different.
Yeah.
Every time. So when I'm doing concerts, I tell people you're going to hear something unique because I'm never going to play it this way again. And it's therefore, not going to be like any recording you hear, even a recording you hear of me. It's going to be something completely different. And that's a way of keeping yourself fresh, keeping your music fresh, keeping the listeners fresh, and also releasing yourself from the idea of perfection,
Yeah.
that the song has to be played exactly this way each and every time.
And
And
and it also comes back as, how do you handle mistakes?
mm-hmm,
We all make them. Even the professionals make them. What sets them apart is they know how to cover it up,
mm-hmm,
and they can turn a mistake into a variation. We make mistakes too. The worst thing you can do is stop. Instead, you just play through it. Even when you're at home practicing, you make a mistake, fine, play through it. Then you'll learn how to cope with them and overcome it. Make it a variation.
mm-hmm.
But we all make them, and it's nothing to get upset about. It's just you play through it because everybody makes them. When Ella Fitzgerald came up with scat, her syllable thing, originally that was a mistake. She was singing in the middle of a concert and she forgot the words. What do you do? Um, she's a pro. She can't just stop, and she can't. And she's got a melody. She's got to throw in something. She threw in nonsense syllables, and she did it so well it became her trademark.
Mm-hmm. So we're scatting on the harp.
Yes, we are, and we're having fun doing it with no apologies.
That's right. No apologies. Just keep going. All right.
Um,
Does anybody have any questions for David? We've got about, I have to end early because I've got to go teach. So I'm going to say we have about 10 to 12 more minutes together.
Good time for questions. I'll play it one more time at some point, but good time for questions.
Why don't you go ahead and play it now while people are thinking of their questions, and with the sound a little bit improved, we'll be able to
Sound is
hear you a
better.
bit better.
Okay.
right. Wonderful. Yeah, we
Thank
heard
you.
that much better this time.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Much better this time.
All right, questions. Good
So,
times.
oh, I have a couple of questions for you. Tell us about your harp.
This is a Christina harp from Triplet. Triplet's a harpist from San Luis Obispo, California. I got this one about 4 years ago when we moved to Oregon. I figured it's a good time to buy a new harp when you move to a new state. But I had one other triplet before that, so I wanted to get this one. I saw one in a store, thought they had a wonderful resonance to it. So a couple months later, I contacted the factory and they sent me one. I fell in love with this harp. It's a wonderful harp, 26 strings, full levers. They call it a therapy harp because it's not as high up here. So if you happen to be playing percent, you can look at a patient better because you have less of the harp blocking your view.
Oh,
It does come with a microphone pickup. It has a place for strap if I want to carry it instead of sitting with it. It is an absolutely wonderful harp. I recommend it highly.
Nice. Nice. I have lots of harps and I love all of them, but like the little ones, but for all the reasons that you've mentioned, that they're easy but I had never gotten clarity on what the word therapy harp meant. So thank you for explaining that.
I think it's because you can look better because you don't have more up here.
Yeah, wonderful.
And it's small enough that you could carry it easily from room to room.
So when you're playing out in coffee shops or different places, are you holding this in your lap or are you sitting
Yeah,
sitting in a chair?
I sit in a chair and I've got one of those little bars on it.
Okay, the stick.
Which helps. And one little aside, since I've got my teaching moment here, everything we do is if you're going to do performance in any way, shape, or form, everything we do, we have to practice to some degree. Like if you're in front of a stage, you not only practice your music, you have to practice how you walk on and off a stage. If you introduce a piece, you have to practice your pattern, your talk about the song. Even something as simple as going to play in a coffee shop, it's good experience. And there's only one way to learn how to play in front of people, and that's by playing in front of people. You can watch videos, you can read books, that helps. The only way you get over the nerves and other things of daring to take your instrument out amongst the public in some fashion is by doing it. And everybody who plays harp should do it. People will love you. You have an exotic instrument. You can play simple chords and they think you're playing Mozart. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's true. And I second that because even after playing out quite a bit, most people I play for have never seen a harp in person. They certainly haven't seen one up close. And the harp, I like to say this little harp works very hard for us, that when you play one note, lots of other notes are playing at the same time, that you didn't actually pluck yourself because of the vibrations of the soundboard and the sympathetic and harmonics and all of that stuff. And so this is why I say keep it simple, because you don't need to make it complicated. And Stephanie Bieber, who's on this call with us today, did my first interview, talked about that too. That keep the simplicity and letting the music speak for itself, and letting the notes ring out. That's the luxury we have as harpists, is that we can take advantage of that and make beautiful music without having to pluck lots of notes. And I feel, especially with the lower notes, the deeper tones, that you can overplay.
Yes.
Down there and things get muddy and not beautiful. And so I'm always challenging myself to play less. Play less.
And that's hard. Play less and maybe play slower.
Less and slower.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was listening last night on my drive home. I was listening to Dorothy Ashby, who is a jazz harpist from the 60s. So I recommend, if you haven't heard, she's got lots of stuff on YouTube. She's long since passed, but she was playing some jazz standards very slowly and very simply. She had cut out a lot, and they were absolutely gorgeous, recognizable, just richly and beautifully on the harp. Now she was playing a pedal harp, but I was surprised. It was the first time I'd listened to this particular album of hers, how much she had eliminated. and how beautiful it was. It was like, ooh, that is totally playable. That is totally playable.
Because you're getting down to the basic purity of the music.
That's right.
You don't need unnecessarily adornments.
That's right.
Yeah.
You don't need to overdo it. All right. Any
Questions?
last thoughts, questions from anybody? Everybody's taking notes. Hopefully going to try some things out. I would love for you, for people who are on the call now or listening later, to take a stab at this and post it on the Facebook page so we can hear your version or your version of your improvisation of Maria Walks Amid the Thorn. Why not? It's the holiday seasons. I'd love to hear.
One or two other points I thought about earlier today, I'll just quickly mention it.
Sure, go for it.
If when you're playing improvisation, one problem you've got is finger placement. Because if you're doing things spontaneously, it's hard to plan in advance. Okay, I'm going to do a roll of chords. My fingers have to be in position to do it. Sometimes it's easier in that is to do a simple drone, because you don't have to worry about all those last moment decisions. Oh, I want to do an F there, then I'm going to do a roll, then I'm going to do a counter melody. I'm going to do all these different things. And if you're going to do it right as a harpist, your finger placement has to be there right. You have better tone that way. And as it looks better and it sounds better. Sometimes a simpler chord or something, or keeping the melody simple, does in fact make it better. And it's easier before your finger placement.
Mm-hmm. And this goes back to something that I like to talk about too, is doing all of your scales, your inversions, all the exercises, your favorite exercise book, that if you do those things regularly, they're in your tool chest, they're in your vocabulary, and the finger placement will be there because you've done it as outside of the improvisation, and it's there. And I after all these these years of playing, I have certain hand positions that are my go-tos, and I'm then working to add to those so that I don't get stuck there, because I can definitely get stuck in a 1-5-8 left hand pattern, and that's because it's so easy for me to just go there and be there accurately every time. But keep adding to your toolkit, and definitely one of my tools is the 1-5 drone, either as a solid chord or as an alternating 1-5 back and forth.
Yeah.
Depending
and it's simple and it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And there's all kinds of reasons in the world of physics and harmonics and overtones why the 1 and the 5 works so effectively well. But for us as harpists, it just happens.
Yeah.
We don't have to. I'm a geek, so I love that stuff. I love knowing that stuff. But as a musician, you just know those two notes go together really well, and you can use them as the root of the chord that you're playing.
And they're far enough apart they never get muddy.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions folks have out there? Any last thoughts for us, David, as we wrap up here?
I want to thank you for inviting me to do this. This was fun. It forced me to prepare, which is a good thing. No, I enjoyed this. I've watched some of your other videos. They were great. And I really appreciate being invited to do this. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. Laura says thank you. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you. All right, everyone. If you have questions that you think of something later, so you can send a note to David. He's in the Facebook group, or send a note to me, and I'll forward it on to him, and get you guys in touch and get you out there playing some more. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
We'll see you in the next one. Have a great day.
Merry Christmas to all.
Merry Christmas to all. Bye.
Thank you.